Okay, we're live now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this hearing of the District Council's Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee. My name is Simon Johnson. I'm a Democratic Services Officer here at the District Council. I'll be acting as clerk for the meeting. I see we have everyone present, so if everyone is prepared and has sight of the agenda, then we'll start. Item 1 on the agenda are apologies and substitutes. Since publication of the agenda, we have received apologies from Councillor Jacqueline Allison. So in her place, we have Councillor Graham Elliott sitting as member instead. If we then move on straight to item 2, election of the chair for the hearing. Members, may I have nominations, please?
Councillor Tony Morley.
And a second.
Councillor Mark Wakeman.
Oh, no. Sorry, just to confirm, Councillor Wakeman, are you nominating yourself or are you seconding Councillor Moore?
No, sorry, I thought we were naming, so Councillor Tony Morley.
Okay, and if there are no further nominations then I declare that Councillor Tony Morley is elected chair of this hearing, and I hand over. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Derbyshire Dales District Council Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee hearing. My name is Councillor Tony Morley and I will chair the proceedings today. On the subcommittee with me are Councillors Graham Elliott and Councillor Mark Wakeman. Kelly France, who is our principal solicitor, will be the committee's advisor, and the clerk of today's hearing is Simon Johnson, who you've just met. Would the licensing manager, Eileen, please introduce herself?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Eileen Tierney. I'm the licensing manager here at Derbyshire Dales.
Thank you. And would the applicant please introduce herself and any representatives she may have?
Good morning, my name's Jenny Else, and this is my colleague Davina Else, sorry. And then I also have Christopher Beach with us as well.
Thank you for that. No, thank you.
I'm going to say my name's Karen Cochrane and I'm here representing the applicant this morning as well.
That's what I was waiting for. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the applicant's representation team. And would those making representations, well, we've got that, haven't we? I think this is objections next, isn't it? We've got any objections, please introduce themselves and any representatives they may have. Representatives against?
So it's James Hobson, live at Top Wild Park Farm.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson.
My name's Andrew Smith. I live at the Old Dairy, Top Wild Park, Brailsford.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Preliminary procedural matters first. Are there any declarations of interest from the members of the committee? That's a none. So I can now confirm that the committee is quorate. And does anyone present have any objections to this meeting being held in public? Everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you for that, everybody. So we're ready to begin. I'm going to hand over now to our licensing manager, to Eileen Tierney, to present an outline so we can all understand the detail of the application. Over to you, Eileen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So good morning, everybody, again. So as my report states, I received an application for a premises licence at the end of June from Middle Wild Park Farm Limited. The application proposes that the mainly outdoor premises are to be known as the Pub in the Woods and will be used to provide live and recorded music, the showing of films, the sale of alcohol, the provision of late night refreshment. Late night refreshment is hot food or drink served after 11 p.m. and before 5 a.m. The table in paragraph 1.3 on page 4 of your papers provides a summary of these activities. The complete application form is produced in Appendix 1 on pages 9 to 33 of your papers. So when the application was submitted to the licensing authority and served on all the other responsible authorities required by law, the applicant was also required to advertise the application in a paper circulating in the area and on blue notices displayed at the site. At the same time, the licensing authority advertised the application on its website. The purpose of the 28-day consultation period is to allow all of the other responsible authorities the opportunity to comment on the application, and to allow local residents or local businesses also the opportunity to make comment on the application. So during the 28-day period, you'll note from the table in paragraph 1.10.1 on page 6 of your papers, the comments that I received from the responsible authorities. And not all of them responded, but those that did in general were no objections. There were just two where comments were made. One was the environmental health officer, who agreed some measures with the applicant's representative, which if a license were to be granted, these could be translated into conditions and attached to the license. I've detailed those in Appendix 2 on page 33 of your papers. The only other comment made by responsible authorities was from the planning authority here at Derbyshire Dales, and basically what they're saying is that if this business were to be more frequent than it has been on the occasion as it's used temporary event notices, then there's a possibility that they'd have to apply for planning permission for various parts of the premises. Other than that, I didn't receive any other comments from the responsible authorities, but I did receive, as you'll see from my report, 5 representations from local residents objecting to parts of the application. The 5th representation, so the representations, 4 of these are included in Appendix 3 of the report, starting on page 35 of your papers. The 5th representation was omitted from my report, for which I apologise, and was circulated separately to all parties after the agenda had been dispatched. So everyone should have a copy of Mr. Smith's representation, which was sent out a day later. The main concerns of the residents are related to the possibility of an increase in noise nuisance and extra traffic if the premises are going to be used on a more frequent basis than they have been during the last 12 months. Section 2 of my report, starting on page 6 of your papers, outlines how the applicant took advantage of the temporary event notices. That's an authorisation that's a light touch bureaucracy, a piece of light touch bureaucracy, whereby the applicant gives notice that they're going to have an event that hosts licensable activities, and they're just telling us that, really. They're giving us notice, and unless the police or environmental health have anything to say about that, then that goes ahead automatically. So they've had, as you'll see from my report, they've had several of those during the last year. That was basically to allow the concept of the pub in the woods to be trialled. So we're here at this stage today, Chair, because I received these objections from residents, which I haven't resolved before the meeting, and therefore I'm required to refer the matter to you, the licensing subcommittee, to be determined. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Does anybody have any questions for Eileen? It's Mr. Smith, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Please, may I ask a question? Regarding the current licence, I'm a little bit confused. On the documentation that you circulated, the hard copy, on page 4, about a third of the way down, there's a note, MB, the provision of unamplified live music is already allowed. Is that under the current license? Is that under a TENS license? Where does that fit into the situation?
Through you, Chair. Basically, the provision of unamplified music is permitted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. without a licence at any premises. That was a deregulation that was brought in with the Deregulation Act, I think it was. It was in 2015 anyway. And basically, the government introduced that relaxation on unamplified
That's easy for you to say.
music. I'm sorry?
So that's easy for you to say. So can I say that is a default situation?
Yes, you can.
So if the application is refused today, that could be the default situation.
It would be the default situation, and it would be only unamplified music. If they wanted to have amplified live or recorded music, they would require a premises license that allows the sale of alcohol. And then that in itself deregulates that activity because they've got a license to sell alcohol.
Okay. And that's between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m.
That's right. Anything beyond that or outside of those hours would require a premises license, or on an occasion, a temporary event notice, which is just, a one-off authorisation. But there are limits to the number of those that can be given, and the applicant has already used up their calendar year's worth of temporary event notices for this site, which is one of the reasons why they're applying for a premises licence.
Would you know when they used up their allocation?
I think it was probably prior to June, them putting the, well, it would have been prior to them putting this application in. So they used them up.
So are the events that are happening at the moment unlicensed?
Well, off the top of my head, I don't know what events they're having at the moment. I don't know if they're temporary event notices that they've already given, or whether they are activities that don't require a license. I mean, perhaps their representative could enlighten you on that.
If I can help at all, there are a number of
bring Karen in through. Yeah, it'd be very useful if you go through the chair, even though we're zooming, Karen.
Yes, thank you. I just thought if it helps at all, we've applied on behalf of our clients for a number of temporary event notices. So they've not done anything that's not been authorised. They have now used up their temporary event notice quota. But I think perhaps Jenny can explain all. I haven't got all the dates. There's been a few temporary events. I haven't got all the dates in front of me. But if you need to know the specific dates, Stacey, who works with Eileen, has dealt with all the temporary event notices, I think. So they haven't done anything, so far as I'm aware, that is not authorised. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I say that there were events last weekend, Friday and Saturday, and there are events advertised on the website for this Friday and Saturday. So my question is, if the TENS licences have expired, under what licence are they operating those events? It's a point of order. You've clarified one position. I'm just wondering what that situation is.
Chair, if I can interrupt there. When I say the quota is used up, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the events have actually taken place. What it means is that they've given notice of events that total up to the maximum number of days permitted at the site. I mean, I will, while other people are speaking, I will check the record, because I can do that from here, and I will see when the next events are, unless Jenny, of course, is able to tell us off the top of her head.
Thanks, Eileen. Does that satisfy you, Mr. Smith?
It does, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Eileen will check those to make sure. Do we have any more questions?
Chair, may I just add, sorry, we do have a temporary event notice granted for this weekend, and this is our last one, so that takes us up to the quota we're permitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a frozen chairman.
I'm sorting my papers here.
Oh, here we go.
So, again, I'm looking at the script we normally use. We want evidence from all parties. And can I remind everybody that all members of our committee have already read the papers in advance of this hearing. And we'll follow the hearing procedure, which is set out in Appendix 4 to the agenda. And everybody got a copy of the hearing procedure?
I'm sorry, we don't have a copy. Karen, do you have a copy you could email to me now at all, please?
Okay, well, don't worry, because I think we're up to speed with that one now, and that's Mr. Smith. Mr. Hodson, do you have any comments? No. Okay, it's now over to you, Jenny Els and Karen Cochrane from Flint Bishop, and of course everybody gets equal opportunity to make representations, and there are time for questions. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Can I just interrupt? Sorry, Karen. Chair, we normally take the representations first. The people making objection haven't done their bit yet.
Right, beg your pardon.
But basically we'd stopped at the questions to me. So Mr. Smith asked me a question. Has anybody else got any questions of me before you move on to those making representation?
It went very quiet, so I'm assuming there's no more questions.
So we move to the representations then.
Yep. Thank you for that, Eileen.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, so representations. And it's over to?
Chair, if I may, the representations that have been received and are in attendance are Mr. Hodson and Mr. Smith. If we can take them individually just to see what they have to say. So if not, then we can move on, but we'll take them individually, Chair.
Yeah. Well, I think we've Mr. Smith then, since you're there, would you like to make your representation, please?
Yes, thank you for clarifying the earlier point regarding the default position. That does give me some basis to work on. Clearly, the application is for provision of live music, recorded music, films, and the sale of alcohol on top of that default situation. And I think that's the bit that I object to, because I am already concerned about the noise level, and clearly approving this application just extends all the noise disturbance. I do find it a bit of a contradiction that it's a premises license when there isn't really a premises other than a log cabin and an outdoor stage. The website of Wild Park Leisure Limited talk about gigs and performances of live musicians, and my problem is the acoustics and the soundproofing of all that. The application is going to further add to the noise distribution, and for me the acoustics are about the same as they are at Glastonbury. Although Glastonbury only lasts 5 days, the potential here is for it to be 365 days a year, with noise nuisance up to 11 o'clock 3 nights a week and up to midnight 4 nights a week. And if you were to read my representation and the email correspondence I had from Mr. Els from Wild Park Leisure, you'll see that his soundproofing in inverted commas, is leaves on the trees and the wind blowing in the right direction. I'm concerned that if the application is approved, it will contravene council policy and cause further disturbance. So I do object to the additional times premises license applied for.
That's the objection. Yep. Thank you for that. And we've got another objector now, I believe.
Yeah, so James here. Yeah, I'm sort of back up really what Andrew has said. You know, my issue is the noise, and from the process that we've been through with Pub in the Woods, I mean, I'm all for them expanding their, but you know, expanding their business, but it's just the noise issue. And from the Pub in the Woods, when it started, we had a note through our door saying there'll be incidental music, and I think incidental music is probably not what was played, because we could hear it very clearly. And after having, you know, had discussions with Middlewile Park, you know, they said they were going to sort it out and do things and not play. I think once they said, oh, we're going to stop at 10:30 and we're going to, and that hasn't really happened. It has reduced, but it still is noisy. And I think, I don't know what the level of noise is, but if you can make out the songs very clearly when what they're playing from your bedroom, then I think that is quite noisy. And I'm just concerned that will carry on for more days of the year, and also with their plans for adult entertainment, that will also bring more noise to the area as well. And and my concern is that maybe not enough has been done to soundproof the current stage. So that's really my issue, is the noise.
Right. Yeah.
And similarly to, I think if you look on the map, all the 5 people who have objected are the 5 houses around Middlewile Park. So I think it is a consistent issue in the vicinity of the Pub in the Woods. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hodson. Now we have our representations for the application, and I'm taking them in the order I've got them here.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. Just something made. Just with the representations, if anyone has any questions for them or clarity on any points they've made before we move to represent to the applicant,
Simon.
please. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Simon. Thank you. Questions, please, for the gentleman. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Okay. So now we move on. And I've got the two, obviously the park itself and Miss Cochrane. So who's going first?
I'll go first, if that's all right.
Karen Cochrane, over to you.
So yeah, my name's Karen Cochrane. I'm a solicitor at Flint Bishop Solicitors, so I represent the applicants. So to hopefully clarify some of the concerns that are being voiced by the residents, we've made this application to give the site the flexibility to provide licensable activities. And I appreciate the application form ticks a box for every night of the week, but that is not how they're proposing to operate. The plan is, say for perhaps on the run up to Christmas, or perhaps if they have a specific event like an Oktoberfest, the intention is not that they'll be trading every single night of the week. So the events that are going to take place are likely to be pre-booked, which will make it easier to control the numbers of people attending, and also limit the times that customers will be entering and vacating the site. For most of the year, they're looking to trade sort of 2 to 3 times a week. That will be their norm. I think it's heartening to note that in one of the written representations that you've got, they've specifically said that 2 to 3 times a week would not cause them a problem, and that's good to know. It's also anticipated that most likely it'll be used at the weekend, unless there's a specific a request for somebody having a function in the week. They're proposing to only trade up until the 11 o'clock in the week, and also at the weekend. That additional hour that we've requested is to provide them again with the flexibility if there's a special event at the weekend, such as a wedding that's taking place, and giving them that extra hour gives them the flexibility to do that when requested without the need to apply for a temporary event notice. You've already heard that temporary event notices are limited in a year. The premises have already reached they've made all their applications that they can for this year. You've also heard very helpfully from your licensing officer that up until 11 o'clock, live and recorded music are already deregulated. And so in theory, that music could happen until 11 o'clock in any event without a license. But it's on the license application because on a few occasions a year, if they've got a special event, they might want to go a little later. It's clear from the application and the plans and the pictures that you've seen, it's a rural and an isolated spot. That is the unique selling point of this premises. It's going to be vital for the premises and also for those living nearby to do nothing to spoil that. People are coming for the rural atmosphere. If they just wanted to go to a normal pub or club, they could do that very easily. But it's intended to be it's called In the Woods. It would spoil that unique selling point if it was made into anything else. You've heard the premises have had the opportunity to test the water by using their temporary event notices. I think it's safe to say they've been on somewhat of a steep learning curve. They will admit themselves that a 5-piece band will simply not work on this site, nor will DJs playing dance music. So with that in mind, they have already started to limit the number of musicians to 2 or 3. So as I say, a 5-piece band wasn't helpful. Their isolated site, I would suggest, means it should really be pretty straightforward to ensure that noise does not cause a nuisance. Acoustic music routinely will cause no issues. I mean, there is a limit to how far that noise will travel. And amplified music can be turned down, it can be controlled. All amplified music on the site is going to go through the premises' own equipment, so they'll retain overall control. And the music won't need to be loud. It's not competing with lots of other background noise. It's not as though there's buses and trains flying past. It is in the middle of nowhere. They're proposing to monitor the noise. They will place their speakers positioned to direct noise away from their neighbours. They did initially have 2 large speakers. They used those initially, but they've recently changed those to 5 smaller zonal speakers. I do hearings all over the country. I appreciate that sound travels in strange ways. And I think it's really important that they work together with their neighbours to identify what steps are working, to identify what else might be needed, what will be effective. If I can assure the committee, there is a real desire to work closely with their neighbours. At the very outset, there was a problem, I think, with taxis, sat-navs, taking taxis to not where they should have been. And they were alerted to this. they quickly rectified that problem and it stopped straight away. I think that's quite a good example of showing how cooperation with those living round and about can ensure that problems are nipped in the bud, and that's certainly how they plan to operate. The applicant doesn't walk away from this site when events are taking place. There are 2 families that live at the site. They're both involved in the business. There's young children that are sleeping nearby. It's not in anybody's interest to disturb people's sleep. They have been undisturbed with the events that have happened to date, but I appreciate, it seems from the representations, that other neighbours have heard music on occasion. So clearly there's further investigation required. In my experience, angling the speakers works terribly well, and I think that's probably what needs to happen. Despite that, there having been all event notices, I think it is heartening from the responsible authorities. You will know they're the experts in their field. The fact that they're content to give this business a chance in what are really very challenging times seems to me very positive. I think part of the reason for that is perhaps their acknowledgement that in the Licensing Act there is a presumption of grant, with of course this facility that you can review a licence should there be any problems occurring in the future. So effectively what my clients are asking you today is for the rope with which they will either hang themselves or not. They are very confident that their business can be run without any issues and whilst promoting the licensing objectives. They've operated this site for a long time. I think over 25 years they've been providing paintballing, they do quad biking. They're really responsible operators. The events that they're proposing will in the main be for over 18s. They've got very strict policies. They don't sell to anybody that's unable to provide them with ID. They know how to supervise groups that come along to celebrate, the quad biking, the paintballing. They're often major life events. People come along as big groups. They know how to manage them. The site is secure. They've got CCTV. The police have spoken to the site, gone through all of what they're doing, and they're content. I think it's important. It's not a new business. They're a reputable business. At the moment, they really have no other option but to try and diversify. We all appreciate how unprecedented and challenging the times are that we're in still. It's not in their interests to tarnish what is an excellent reputation. As I've already said, they live on site, they're hard-working people. They certainly don't want to upset their neighbours, but they want their business to survive and prosper, but at the same time believe they can do that without upsetting anybody. They're providing a valuable tourist attraction. They create jobs. They're enhancing what is already a valuable community asset. So as I say, they're confident they can do this while promoting the licensing objectives. If you look on their application, they had really thought this through. They've offered a considerable number of conditions to assist in ensuring the licensing objectives are met. As I say, there's CCTV, staff training, and as you will be aware, in the very unlikely event there was an issue, the licence can be reviewed. If there's evidence to show there is a problem, we can be back before you with our tails between our legs, I expect, and we'll be given short shrift. The licence can be reviewed. And then, of course, in addition to that, the issues seem to be predominantly with regard to the potential for noise nuisance. Your environmental health officers can take action under the Environmental Protection Act, irrespective of what happens today, should there be noise from the site. So I think the objectors should have every confidence the site is willing to work with them. There are steps that can be taken, but we would like to be given the opportunity to show what can be done. And as I say, if there's a problem in the future and there's evidence there's a problem, then we'll be brought back before yourselves. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you. Unless the applicant thinks I've missed anything out. Thank you.
Okay, well, before we hear from, well, we will now, if you don't mind, go straight to the applicant. I've got 4 people down here on the list. How many of you wish to speak?
None of us really need to add anything. Karen has covered off everything that we wanted to say. Thank you.
You're happy with that? So now handing over to the members of our committee. No, thanks, Simon. Good guidance from Simon, yeah?
No, so I was just going to say, yeah, members of the committee, or if they have any questions for Karen or the applicant, then any clarity on anything that's been said. Sorry.
That's what
Chairman, can I raise a question, please? On just on the comment.
Yeah, Mrs. Smith, yeah.
So James Hodson, sorry.
Sorry, James.
Yeah, sorry. Just a few comments on what Karen has said. I think a lot of the first half was about intentions and this is what we plan to do, which is very different to what they're applying for. And so my concern is that yes, and I spoke with Richard Else on a number of occasions, and he always said it's our intention only to do this, only do that, but that's sort of not what the license says. And so my concern is that actually and I think, am I right, is the license stays with the business, does it, or is it with individuals? So I suppose there's 2 issues. A, that if they feel they need to do more events, they can, even though that's not their intention now. And secondly, if whatever happens with the business, if they decide to sell it, then someone with a much more commercial, more ruthlessly commercial attitude could take over the business with this license and do an event every night or whatever it is. So that's really just my comment on those, things is what the intentions are. What you say the intentions are is very different to what you're applying for.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, James. Fine. So now it's over to our committee. The members of our committee, do you have any questions for either, from the applicant or any of the objectors? Yes, I'm bringing Councillor Graham Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. It's a couple of questions for Eileen, really. Have we received any complaints at all, Eileen, since the issue of the TENS notices?
Through you, Chair. As far as I'm aware, Environmental Health haven't had any complaints. Otherwise, they would have raised those as part of their response to the consultation. So it may well be that people who've experienced noise haven't known where to complain to or who to complain to. Generally speaking, people tend to complain to the police, who don't deal with noise nuisance. They just deal with antisocial behaviour, that sort of thing. But they do always refer any complaints on to the district council. So I'm assuming from the response I received from the environmental health officer and the fact that looking at the system, I can't see any recorded complaints. I did take a look this morning. I'm assuming that we haven't had any.
Thank you, Eileen. The second question, I think Karen's mainly answered it. Again, it was for Eileen, that if we were minded to approve this application as presented, can you remind us what powers we have should a qualified stroke substantial flurry of complaints come in? Reference to noise, Eileen.
I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question. What
If we were minded to approve this application as it's been presented,
yes,
and we found out later that we were getting lots and lots of complaints regarding to noise, can you just remind us what powers we have to overcome that issue?
Okay. Well, generally speaking, the noise complaints in the first instance would be dealt with by environmental health under their primary powers, as Karen mentioned, under the Environmental Protection Act. If that wasn't successful and the applicant or the licence holder, as they would be by then, weren't cooperating for any reason, they could serve a notice, abatement notice, environmental health could, or they could, if all else failed, go for a last resort, which would be, as Karen said, apply to the district council or to the licensing authority to review the licence. Generally speaking, I think, and Karen will correct me, or Kerry if I'm wrong, but generally speaking, I think the law or the guidance, the statutory guidance made under the Licensing Act would expect a premises to operate for 6 months to a year before a review would be called in. They would expect all other avenues of address to be undertaken first. A review it's serious. It allows the council the permission or the provision to revoke a licence. So it is quite a serious step, and it should only be taken as a last resort.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Chair.
Fine. Yeah, Mr. Smith and Andrew, I've noted that you've got your hand up there. So I'm going to bring in now Councillor Mark Wakeman, please.
Yes, through you, Chair. The biggest concern I've got is the fire and rescue service never commented. Obviously, with it being a pub in the woods and smoking, is there any fire? It doesn't say if there's any fire equipment next to the site.
Yeah, you're on mute, Karen.
Sorry. Yes. Jenny's probably a better person to answer. Every premises has to have a fire risk assessment. So I'm sure they've got one. I know that there's all sorts of health and safety things that have been dealt with at the site. So, but perhaps Jenny can tell you exactly what she's got there. Thanks.
Yeah, can I bring you in, please, to answer that one?
Yes, thank you. On our premises, on the actual premises plan that we've done, I'm ever so sorry I don't have one to hand, but it marks the various spots of the fire extinguishers on there. So there are actually fire extinguishers within the building. We also have buckets of water near all of any of the open fire pits, and we have got a full risk assessment, and we have a designated fire marshal on any evening that we're running with the fire there.
Thank you.
That was part of our risk assessment.
Thank you.
You happy with that, Councillor? So are the councillors, the committee, happy with that? And as I say, I've got a hand up with Mr. Smith. Simon, bit of guidance. Can Mr. Smith come back in at this point?
Yes, certainly. Yes, it's for open question and clarity for members or representations. It's fine.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Smith, over to you.
Thank you. It was regarding the complaints being received by the council. In the representation earlier by the applicants, we're trying to keep it friendly. We all live in the area. We all live within sort of 400 or 500 yards of each other. We haven't, and I wasn't aware in truth how to make an official complaint, but I have made representation directly to Wild Park Leisure. And if you were to look at the documents that were included in my representation, there was an exchange of emails at the end of April where I shared my concerns with Mr. Else, and you'll see from his reply that the three things that in his view caused the noise to carry was the fact that my property is more elevated than his, that the wind was blowing in the wrong direction, and as yet there weren't any growth leaves on the trees. So just to clear up any objections, we have at this stage tried to remain neighbourly and friendly and not raised any official complaints with the council. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Hodgson, because although I haven't been involved in his exchanges with the business, I know he has actually spoken to Mr. Else. And indeed, Mr. Else has come down to our properties to hear the noise, and by his own admission has said that he can hear it. So, as I say, all I wanted to clarify was the fact that there has not been any official complaints, but as neighbours, we have tried to talk to each other regarding the problems that we're both facing.
Fine, thank you, Smith. Yeah, I think, and we all have copies of that of your exchange of emails.
Thank you.
Anything else now? Anything else require any clarification from any of the parties? Committee have got no more questions.
Sorry, Chairman, just got one query. If I could raise that.
Please, yeah.
Just on the bit of the sort of adult entertainment area, and because if you're going to have those events, then I don't know what sort of events you're planning, but they do just attract noise, because you know, if someone's going to go to those events, they don't want to sit quietly, so it will be attractive. Are those going to be outside or inside, or what's the sort of plan for those events?
Is that a question?
Yeah, it's a question really, just sort of you know, it is a specific point of the application to have adult entertainment evenings.
Thanks, Mr. So just so I've understood it, what was the question?
Well, the question is what form will those events take place? You know, how many people, what entertainment, what, you know, what is the plan for those events?
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Can I bring you in now, Pub in the Woods?
Thank you. Yes, it's adult entertainment is probably a little bit of a strong description for it, but that's what it fitted under the licensing objectives. But what we had in mind was actually something more along the lines of a company that's called Butlers in the Buff, whereby for people that don't know what they are, it's people who are serving food or serving drinks to you, and they are topless, gentlemen topless with an apron on, so there's no full nudity, and it would be more along the lines of having some kind of charity event or something. So we're not thinking of screening adult films or anything like that, and there is actually a limit to how many of those we'd be able to be running anyway, and it would be very few and far between. We're not thinking of having hen parties every week or anything like that.
Fine. Mr. Hodson, does that answer your question?
Yes, but I sort of go back to my point. That's not what you're applying for. Those are your intentions, but that's not what you're applying for, I suppose. I'm just trying to raise that point again of what's in the application for the license and the difference between what they say they're going to do. So that's just another point on that. Okay,
yeah, no, that's fine. So we've had a fairly comprehensive exchange there, and the committee are happy. Everybody's happy they've got enough information there. So I'm going to, gentlemen, Mr. Smith and Mr. Johnson, you're quite happy. Karen, are you happy, Karen Cochran, are you happy now with what you've heard from the gentlemen? Let me bring you in.
Yeah. Yes. Do you want me to sum up, or are you going to come back to me for that? I've got no further questions at all. So,
yeah, I think a quick summation from what you've heard there from the objectors would be sensible. Yes, please.
Yeah, I think part of the difficulty with a licensing application, you'll see that we've tried to cover everything in the application. Part of that is so that we don't have to keep coming back to ask for temporary event notices. So it is a far-reaching application, and I think it's just a problem with the way the whole process works. I appreciate absolutely that what I've said today is talking about we're proposing to use this 2 or 3 times a night, we're proposing to only, but that is what our intentions are, and I don't think there's any reason to disbelieve my clients. The difficulty is if I say it's only going to be on a Friday and a Saturday, and then somebody comes along, particularly at the moment, we've got lots of people getting married on a Tuesday and a Monday because, of course, people are playing catch up with events that weren't able to happen during the pandemic. So if I don't include a Wednesday night, you can guarantee that that'll be a night when somebody on the odd occasion wants to come along. So the reason that the application includes every night of the week is because we want the flexibility on occasions to operate on those nights. And I sympathise that it would be better to know exactly what's happening every night of the week, every day, but businesses just aren't able to provide that level of information. But I would suggest to you, there's no reason to disbelieve what they're saying. They're a professional outfit. They know what they are and aren't allowed to do. I think at the outset, when they started this enterprise, they tested the water with using temporary event notices, and it has been a steep learning curve, and they are still on it. And I think working together with their neighbours will ensure that nobody's disturbed. I appreciate that the only concerns seem to be with regard to noise. So the fact that they're wanting to sell alcohol doesn't seem to cause a problem. It's just the noise that's likely to come from music, I think, on the site. Up to 11 o'clock, that's going to be allowed anyway. And I think the number of occasions that it's happening after 11 o'clock will be limited. But the door is open. All the neighbours are very welcome to come and visit, to see what's happening and to work together. And I'm sure that in all reality, this could be a win-win, that everybody's at the end of the day is not disturbed, and the business can still thrive. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Karen. Very clear. Well, I think we've had a sufficient of a discussion from the members and the representations now. So I'm going to ask Eileen now to, do you have any comments?
No, Chair, not really. Other than to draw the subcommittee's attention to paragraphs 3.4 and 3.5 of the report, which explains to them the options available to them with this application. Other than that, no, I'm happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Eileen. And we're going to bring our solicitor in now. Kerry, do you have any observations to make, please?
No, not at the moment, Chair. I think everyone's sufficiently covered all the points.
Fine, thanks, Kerry. So I'm going to speak to the members of the committee now. Are you members satisfied that you've got enough information now to make a determination on this case? Colleagues?
Yes, Joe.
Yes,
I have, Chair.
Yeah, and a yes from Councillor Waitman. So it's now time for you to leave the room so that we can consider the matter.
Chair, if I may.
Simon, yeah.
That's okay. What we mean by this, we will remove the applicant and people making representation, also Eileen, the licensing manager, to the waiting room here on Zoom, while the committee makes their decision on the application. We would advise that you keep an eye on, because there will be no notification when we come back. We may take a moment or two, but we'll come back with a decision either there and then, or we'll supply it within the set time period. But we're going to move you to the waiting room, as I say, and if you bear with us, we'll be back as soon as practical. Okay, so and we'll just start removing you to the waiting room now.
Thanks, Simon.
And once we have everyone moved, okay, Jim, and if you could just let us know when we've stopped live streaming for a moment.
Right, so we're live now. I'm going to let everybody back in.
Thank you for your patience, everybody. It is my pleasure or duty to announce that, having considered all the evidence put before it, the subcommittee determined to approve the application as written, as submitted. I would remind the objectors, however, that they've still, and I've been reminded by our solicitor, that this isn't necessarily carte blanche, because they do have the protection of the environmental protection laws.
I think we might have just.
I think we might have lost the chair.
I think we might
Yeah.
just,
oh, no, you're there.
I can hear you. Let's just see if I can go back to visible. Yeah, I'm back into that. I apologise for that, everybody. Technical glitch. So we're approving the application that it's written, reminding the objectors that they have got other protections. It's not just a carte blanche. You will be receiving the decision with the full decision with all the supporting documentation within 5 days. You then have 21 days to appeal that. That's appealing it to the local magistrates court. So if any party is dissatisfied with the decision, you have the right of appeal. So repeating myself, the magistrates court acting for the petty sessional area in which the premises are located. I'm guessing that'll be Derby. But you must do this, as I said, in writing within 21 days of the written notice of decision, which will be with you in 5 days. And the hearing is now closed. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.
Thank you. Thanks very much.